Thank you so much. Thank you for having me part of this very, very important conversation. I'm honored to be here with two business leaders so committed to this. You've already gotten a beautiful intro, Hans, but as chair and CEO of Verizon, you've done a lot. Before this, when you were president and CEO of Ericsson, you started that commitment. You have worked around the world. You speak 4 languages despite being born in Sweden. And what I would like to say, maybe what I like most is, despite being a true global citizen, he's raising his children in the Garden State. Damien, after a long, long career on Wall Street, you made somewhat of a pivot as the CEO of Lafayette Square, making a huge commitment, right? As part of Lafayette Square, you were investing in underserved communities to expand who we're hiring, but also by investing in these businesses, you're empowering them to change who our workforce is. You also serve as board chair of the Vera Institute for Justice, which is focused on how we are going to change both our criminal and immigration system and as they relate to hiring today. We're so grateful for the work that you're both doing, so thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
It was mentioned just a moment ago, we hear it all the time. The unemployment rate is super low. Anecdotally, there are 2 open jobs for every unemployed person. Let's just start with, how are those 2 numbers impacting what you do every day?
In my case, of course, we have a large workforce, all the way from the field engineers and to the store employees and to technicians, all the way up to administration of the companies. Of course, there are different facets of it, and then we're also distributed all around the world, but basically in the US. So of course, it's a little bit different geographically, but also in certain cohorts where it's even tougher. But it's clear that the last 4 or 5 years, it has been a quite dramatic change about the responsibility of an employer, an employee, and how important it has become as an employer to see that you're very inclusive and that you actually have much more than compensation as the main mean to keep and retain and attract talent. That has, I mean, I've been CEO since 2010, and I can tell you it's an enormous difference today how you need to think about that. But also, as it was said in the beginning here, it's a tough talent market. It's very few talents out there that you can recruit, so you need to stick out, you need to think differently in order to continue to recruit. In our case, it becomes extremely important, and we have 140 million consumers of the United States that use our service every day. We need to have employees that also represent our customer base. We need everyone from every part of our society to be able to be part of our company. And attracting them is one, retaining them and developing them is another. Both of them are more critical than ever to see that your flourishing company can actually compete well.
But when you talk about inclusivity like that, does that come from a place of philanthropy, or does it come from a place of, we need the most talented bodies? We need to broaden out how we think, not from, because people often say, like,
there's no
especially
philanthropy
right
there.
now,
There's only business. I mean, this is business decision. I mean, that's why I'm saying that what we need to reflect our society and our customer base. I mean, if you have 140 million consumers in the United States, you would know we would have every type of person in this country there. And we need to have the same in our stores, in our field engineers, people developing products. You need to have that in order to have a chance to compete. So this is a pure 100% business decision.
Damien?
I agree with everything that's been said.
Feel a but.
There's a but. Job quality in the United States is abhorrent. We have a benefits crisis in this country. 50% of workers live check to check. Most workers, don't have $500 of liquidity for an emergency. Inflation is a pay cut for workaday people just because they got out of bed in the morning. And so we're coming off of this really active winter, spring, where there are emergency meetings to save SVB, and there's all this energy about a banking crisis. I don't see that animation regarding the human beings who make up the preponderance of our labor force and their financial insecurity in this moment. The data is very clear. The uptake of retirement benefits and healthcare benefits, particularly by low, moderate income workers, that is, those who are 80% of area median income or less, is tragically low. So you have this duality. Wages can only go up so much, even during periods of inflation, and the business community is looking for more bodies, but can only pay so much. Even with what they're paying, the benefits suck, and people aren't using the healthcare, and they aren't saving any money. So what do you do when you're trying to jam people into jobs that don't actually allow them to retire with dignity or have ends meet? And that's the status quo for our system. You layer onto that returning citizens, and now you start to have the real adult conversation. There's a ton of human capital and talent that has been misallocated, but even as we find seats for that talent, are they stepping into good jobs?
You said two things that I want to follow up on. The SVB example gets a lot of headlines around, we're just helping these wealthy bankers, we're just helping we're just helping the Silicon Valley set. But are we forgetting that there were scores of businesses, small businesses, that hire individuals that wouldn't make payroll had the government not stepped in to backstop just the depositors? And I just want to make sure our audience knows, backstop the depositors, not the investors, not the equity holders, not the sub-debt holders. So I just want to be perfectly clear with our audience when we talk about what happened
I
there.
agree, Stephanie. I'm saying, where's the backstop for low, moderate income workers? So I don't want to take something from SVB. I'm talking about the silence and the lack of energy around tens of millions of Americans who live check to check and don't have people with power pounding the table saying this is a crisis and we have to do something immediately.
You also touch on something that's really important that I think gets missed, where so many employers out there pay so little or offer so few benefits. And you hear this headline out there, well, people would rather stay home than go to work. There's this line, can you talk about, that people are missing, that oftentimes if you go out and you get a job, on paper it looks like, oh, that person's working, but people are paid so little or offer so few benefits, they would actually get more if they were getting more government support. So those employers need to start figuring out, what do we do to make it not attractive? It's not like people are staying at home because they like it, but some people aren't taking jobs because they cannot afford to.
It's true, and look, just to pick on Verizon,
Oh no.
we have a progressive commercial CEO with an HR department that gets the joke. He is the exception, not the rule. If you surveyed the peer group, you would find Verizon is an outlier with its comp, benefits, and hiring practices. So let's just start with first things first.
That's a good kind of picking on.
Well, we need the Fortune 500 to do the right thing.
I agree.
So that's like step one. Meanwhile, in the US middle market, you have 250,000 companies with revenues of $10 million to $1 billion. Those 300,000, 250,000 companies employ 50 million workers. Having 250,000 HR departments, you can see the amplitude and the dispersion of outcomes, but we don't have the consistency. So we're throwing human beings into this mosh pit where they're getting chopped up. And sometimes you have organizations who do it well and do it right, even in high-cost markets like the Garden State, your beloved New Jersey, where the cost of living is really tough. But let's talk about a place like Texas, where healthcare benefits are rolling off, places growing like a weed. But are you going to get paid enough, and we have enough resources to actually make it work? And there's very inconsistent labor practices in that state, just to pick on Texas. Right, so this is a local issue. Every jurisdiction has its own set of dynamics. And by the way, in America, you've got so many prisons and jails that it itself comes with a geospatial dynamic. You pour somebody out of the system, 700,000 people per year are coming home looking for jobs, and what happens in one community versus another is so inconsistent at a time when people are vulnerable, coming off of a traumatic experience like being incarcerated.
Texas is the perfect state, though, because when you look at cities like Austin, it's kind of like Pittsburgh in the last 15 years, right? All of these jobs came, all of these technology companies came, but also so did all of these workers from other states, right? And you go right outside Austin, you go right outside Pittsburgh, and you've got entire counties of lower wage workers that lost mill jobs years ago, and many of those new businesses didn't figure out, how am I going to employ these people from outside these cities? Hans, you mentioned it earlier. You've been running your company since 2010.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of Fortune 500 CEOs who have sat in their seats for this many years. And many say, like, I'm struggling to keep this job. I've got activist investors banging down banging down my door. I have to make these decisions. How have you made different, more inclusive decisions that have ended up being a huge business success for you? And how can you show this to other CEOs who are saying, I'm doing what I can, I got Carl Icahn on my throat?
I think, first of all, coming back to a little bit how we see it, this is pure business for us. If I can retain and develop talent in the company, they are much more productive, and we're going to flourish as a company. And that's why when we benchmark, for example, our attrition rates in stores, etc., it is lower than our competition, and that's very important. And that's why also, as I said in the beginning, I mean, compensation, the salary is just one piece of the full compensation, and that has been very important for us to see that there's healthcare, there are other type of services we can offer, all from mental health, fitness support, and all of that, because that goes into a compensation today, which probably 20 years ago, at least when I started, I didn't even thought about that. The only thing you thought was the headline number for the salary was important. I didn't think about what pension I'm going to get. You know, I'm young, so I don't care. But that has proven, and right now our job as an employer, which we can do even better, is two things. One is to educate all our employees, all the benefits we have, because sometimes they cannot find them. We need to be better to help them out, to see what is really right for them. And the second is, the best success we have is, of course, to upskill and train our employees that maybe they start as a field engineer. We have a garage over here with the field engineer. They can continue to be a leader of a team, then going up to be a project leader, and showing them how they do that advancement. So we have several programs, and one of the most important programs I've done the last couple of years, where we've sort of built taxonomy across the company. So you know, I'm working with this today. If I want to get this job, these are the trainings I need to take, and they're all open for me. So you as an employee has a chance to take the responsibility also for your own career. You should always have a manager helping you, what you should do, where you should go, but you also might have a totally different interest. I want to do this. That is super important when you retain talent, develop talent, and ultimately, that's the best talent you have in the company. They're loyal, that you have given them a chance, and that chance has developed to a new job, a new opportunity. Can even be, I need to be in another state, work in another state. I want to work with something else. All of that becomes very important in order to have a strong company that can compete for business. And that's how we see it as a business. That's how I've seen it since I've been working all my time.
But you've been doing upskilling and reskilling programs for years.
For years.
Are they becoming bigger now, more important now, or just getting more focused?
They become more important because, as I said in the beginning, the shift from in the culture, awareness of employees, how important the companies, so they become even more important. Today, you can have an interview with someone and they start asking what type of upskilling programs you have, what training programs you have. That wasn't the case 15, 20 years ago. I mean, hey, what's the salary? Hey, I take the job. Or what's my job title would be the most important. Now they start asking a lot of other things, you know. They talk about the resource groups you have and how you get together. We haven't had that before. But in our case, that started way before I started at Verizon. They thought about that as an important way for us to compete and also tap into resources in this market that few others have done.
Connect this, though, to second chance hiring, because for many, that's a third rail.
No, so I connect that. I mean, and this started way before me. I mean, Verizon decided 2015 to ban the box, meaning that when anybody applies, they don't need to check if they have a criminal record. That we do when we give them the sort of the conditional employment, and that was a way for us to give second chance to people that are coming out from incarcerated, that really want to get back to our society. Our experience is they are very loyal and give it that chance and to come in. And we wanted to take away any biases in the beginning of the hiring process, which you usually have, and especially if it's a box, then you are already taking those type of candidates away. And that has been I think that since we started with it, we have given 60% of the people with criminal records applying the opportunity to get a job, because we gave them the chance to come to the sort of the final level. So it's been an important way for us to get that talent in our company, and very loyal, fantastically good workers. So that's part of the overall, to see that you're getting all the talents in the market and how you develop the company.
Damien, you have been a huge advocate for second chance employment for years, and it's through your portfolio companies, but beyond what you can control through the Vera Institute, which you mentioned earlier, programs like the Georgetown Pivot. But what are you doing, and how do you work to convince other business leaders get on board?
Okay, I think there's a business case for all of this. It was out of necessity that the business community started to think about returning citizens, because they didn't have enough labor. This was not altruistic. There's an economic coincidence here. 40 years of declining interest rates, equity valuations that shot through the roof, can't find enough bodies, and then you realize you have tens of millions of returning citizens who've been given a life sentence because of the box. So the whole notion of banning the box, I think, was a great example of the business community, without government intervention, being rational and saying we can do more and we can do better. I see the capital markets now starting to give voice to, hey, if we get this right, there's a bit of an inflation hedge in doing things for workers where you don't have to also worry about constantly just moving wages higher, but you upgrade benefits and you get more elasticity in your labor pool. But hey, this typically doesn't get phrased as an anti-inflation conversation, but it is. In the same breath, I would point out the cost of capital should be lower for employers that hire returning citizens. Why?
Explain that. Explain that.
Why? Because if you have less turnover, higher productivity, you should be rewarded for that. You have an economic advantage in this highly competitive, very dynamic marketplace. And it's interesting, we have more data science and information about what's happening with labor today than we've ever had. So our ability to make the business case has improved dramatically in this moment. But I see this playing out, Stephanie. You're going to see higher interest rates, more equity volatility. I feel like this is like the 1970s revisited. Geopolitical stuff, commodity stuff. It feels a lot like when we were born. Well, guess what? If you can show you're a preferred employer, you provide ballast to investors, and shareholders and bond investors will reward you financially because of that ballast.
You agree with that? Because we keep saying, oh, but it has to be about profitability. This all connects back to profitability and running the best company possible.
I mean, you can take examples where we have data analytics. After, if you are recruited to work in a store, for example, after 3 months, you have a certain productivity. If you stay 6, if you stay 12, of course, you are much better. You do much better business because you know the business better. So retaining talents is definitely proven in our system that we can do much better business. And that goes also for any other type of sales, business to business, whatever we're doing. And we sort of have all that type of businesses. But again, it comes back to take away biases. We did the same with, we are not requiring college degrees or GPAs, and I would say the majority of all the
When
job
did you make that change? Because it's
And
happening
we
in a
did that
really
a couple
big
of
way
years
now.
ago. The same goes there. I mean, you don't want any bias. There are certain jobs you might need a degree for, but the majority you don't need a degree. I mean, you want the right individual with the right ambition that can fight. So we took that away as well. But again, it's all about taking away bias as you recruit the right person for the right job. So that it's all the same. And then if you're given the chance, you're going to fight hard and be loyal to the company. I mean, it goes back to my history. I'm Swedish, but I'm born in a northern part of Sweden where there live 5,000 people and people hardly speak. I was given a chance because I was fighting all the time. And that's for me, I didn't have a degree. I haven't gone to any of these fancy schools here or anything like that. But it's again, don't put biases on leaders early on what they should recruit for. They should recruit for a competence, a character, a person. That's more important. Then, of course, in certain cases, you need certain things that you need to check. But ultimately, don't start with that before you're coming into it. I think that goes through the whole idea of Verizon and the leadership. And again, it started way before I came into the company.
Damien, how important is this movement to drop jobs requiring 4-year degrees, and especially as it relates to second chance employment? I mean, the first executive order, the day his first day in office, the new governor of Pennsylvania, that's what he did. He dropped 4-year degree requirements for state jobs, and it impacted hundreds of thousands of jobs.
American competitiveness hinges on getting this right. I put this issue on par with immigration.
Okay, but here's where the bad news about that is. Putting it on par with immigration is excellent, except, of course, we're not doing anything on immigration, and we're not going to for the foreseeable future.
You say that, but I'm an optimist, and I think we have to be constructive with our friends who have anxiety or fear, and instead of making them feel guilt or shame about that fear, I think we call it out. The math in America does not work without labor beyond our borders, period. And anyone who denies that can offer no facts to counter the point. So without recrimination or accusation, let's just talk about reality. We need foreign-born talent to make the American dream a reality. In addition, we need to create credible, honorable, mobile opportunities for returning citizens because they represent a third of the labor pool in the United States. That's just the math. So the duality of returning citizens and non-citizens and what they mean for American families in West Virginia, the Florida Panhandle, Kentucky, Inland Empire in California. This is a 50-state issue. And I'll also be remiss in not pointing out, we have a report card on doing it the other way.
I desperately want to talk about this and how it impacts immigration reform. I can see the team here going, that is another subject, and we only have so much time. So on another day, I really do want to talk about this, but I want to get back to second chance. Hans, second chance hiring we think of as the initial hire.
Yeah.
But how do those second chance employees, how do you think about that when you think about reskilling, upskilling, and upward mobility within your company?
I think that sort of to attracting employees and then of course seeing that you do that unbiased is the first step. Then I think it's a growing responsibility, business responsibility to retain your employees, and that you do by upskilling, giving them opportunities with programs and self-education. I mean, historically, I always go back. When I started, it was up to my manager to tell me, you should do that, I can move you there, or you should take this course or not. In today's society, you need to give more optionality for your employees to do that work themselves as well. You always have a manager that can guide you and so on, but it's even more important when you have a certain job and you want to get to that job. I think I really want that, and then you can see the path. What education, what trainings can I take to get there? That's what we have created in Verizon over the last couple of years, both that we know what type of positions they are and how you can get another position and what are the training you can take. And a lot of our employees are taking those courses themselves in order to self-deploy. So when they're going to apply, they can say, hey, I've taken actually all the steps you asked me to do. And that is a high level of loyalty when you have that, but also given the chance. And of course, we're a large corporation that has so many different opportunities, both geographically, business-wise. You can work very many things, but that's also our strength, and which we should use as an advantage for us. So that has, I would say, changed quite dramatically the last 5 years, and especially also when COVID came, when many need to go home, and then you start thinking about what do I want to do after this. Having opportunities after that, when I don't know if I want to continue to do what I did before, because you got the chance to reconsider. That has helped us a lot, and in many segments of our business, our attrition has come down quite dramatically because we saw that opportunity, and our employees saw that opportunity as well.
Damien, do you see this as an issue? Second chance hiring basically happens at one entry level, and then do you see it stopping out? Or once a company goes through that process and embraces the second chance mindset, there are no limits?
I think there are no limits. I think incentives matter. So the capital markets providing rewards for businesses that get this right is a big plus. I don't think government intervention is going to be the way where people are told they have to do things a certain way. But clearly, whether it's middle market or large Fortune 500 companies and everything in between, out of necessity, this labor pool is going to be embraced more and more. The demographics in the US drive us to that place. The economic volatility drives us to that place. And great things like today provide tools and infrastructure for those who need to come up the learning curve to get the information to understand how to elevate and improve their hiring practices. But again, I just want to state it, 50 million employers, 50 million workers in the US middle market employed by 250,000 companies. This is achievable. That's 250,000 heads of HR that we need to educate. And we get them on the same page as their CFO and their CEO in those 250,000 companies, that this labor pool solves a problem. This labor pool is observably, measurably loyal and effective at scale. We have leading large public companies that have given us data on the performance of this labor pool. The water is warm. Welcome.
The water is warm.
How do we think about it for folks in the second chance community, people with criminal backgrounds, but who have a lot of job experience? Because for the most part, when we think about second chance, these are entry-level jobs.
No, not necessarily. I mean, I would say, again, if you have the model that Verizon has in 2015, I mean, anyone can apply to any job in the company. And we see people with criminal records on many levels in the company. So I wouldn't say that. So for us, it has been more about, again, as I said so many times, I mean, it's not a bias for anything when you apply. And that goes, as I said before as well, not requiring a college degree and many things, which also could be a hinder if you have been incarcerated and things like that. So all that comes together, that we get the right people on the right level. So I think that it actually worked out well for us. And again, all our data tells us that many of these employees are extremely loyal, thankful for the company giving them a second chance and doing a great work. And that's the data you're talking about. And that's so important, because ultimately you want very loyal employees that lives the brand every day and lives your core values every day. That's what makes a company. That's how you succeed. That's how you make money, and that's how you make profit.
Same to you.
I totally agree. And let's face it, people exit the system under 50, over 50. People get into the system for a lot of different reasons. Yeah. And we need no age bias in this discussion. It needs to be about human capital, wherever it resides.
Hans, you are sort of this shining example, but I want to go back to sort of your peers who are stuck on the stigma or not embracing this. Do you think any of it has to do with something you mentioned a few minutes ago? You come from northern Sweden. You didn't go to these fancy, necessarily Ivy League schools that other business leaders here did. Do you think that's one of the reasons why you're more open to this and potentially some of them are more resistant?
No, I don't. No, I wouldn't draw that conclusion.
Then why are others more resistant?
I don't know. I think, guys like me, we're very focused on what we are responsible for and what we are doing every day. And I think this is the model that is fitting Verizon and also my previous employer, which had employees in 180 countries. We're one of the most global companies in the world. So it just comes natural when you have the chance. And I've lived in 7 countries, I've seen so much, and ultimately giving people a chance that are different has been, or different, they have different skill sets, has been enormously important for me. So no, I don't know, I cannot really talk for others. I can talk for what we are doing as a company. And again, this is not the one-person show or me doing it. It's embedded in the HR system. It's embedded in the leadership when I do it. It's not me telling everybody to do it. It's just normal core values in our company because it's good business. So I cannot draw any conclusion about what others are doing. I can only draw a conclusion what we are doing and why it's happening.
Damien, why do you think others are resistant?
I could speak about the sources of fear and anxiety. I don't think it helps. I think we have to show examples of people who make it work, and that your women and children are not going to be endangered, and you don't have something to be afraid of. So we have so many great models of success where returning citizens have been able to partner with local colleges and universities. Like Georgetown does in Washington, D.C. They've been able to get internship opportunities. They've been able to prove themselves. The volume of data, and Hans, I might even put this forward as something Verizon thinks about as a side project.
Yeah.
Just share the stats
Yeah.
on what's happened over the last 10 years as a leading employer with tens of thousands of bodies that have come through the organization, the retention of those bodies, the wages of those bodies. And all of a sudden, I think people start to say, wait a minute, I don't have as much to be afraid of as I thought, because you could also publish the crime statistics from inside of Verizon, and it turns out a bunch of bad things have not happened. Human beings want to live a good, happy life. People make mistakes, and we are a nation of second chances. So this is the American underdog conversation, and I don't want to make people feel bad or guilty for feeling shame or fear about any of this. I want to actually embrace them and give folks good data and good examples on why it works.
On the other side, as an employer, are you dealing with this voter mindset, voter shift that crime is a top issue and we need to be tough on crime? Is that impacting what you're doing at all?
No.
Good.
No, of course, we are aware of the society. We have almost 9,000 stores in the country. Of course, we understand that there are happening things a lot around us and we need to be more cautious, but it's not like it's part of our decision making or something like that, no.
Do you see it as a roadblock in any way?
No, I think let the debate happen. It's gonna take its course. The reality is, I love New York City, especially in the summertime. Like there's a reason people like to come here. There's a reason folks like to enroll at Columbia. We have great institutions. We have great communities. We have to hold them up. People will villainize and say bad stuff, but folks vote with their feet.
We don't need to be part of a debate. I'm honored to be here as part of a positive movement. Damien, Hans, thank you both for all that you do. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for including me. Thanks
Thank you
so
so
much.
much.